recruitment coordinator, excuse me.
I'm Lila, and I'm a recruitment coordinator.
I'm Alex 3, and I'm the call center coordinator.
I'm Victoria, and I'm a recruiter.
Marlita, recruiter.
I'm Haley, I'm the recruitment coordinator. I'm Emily, I'm the special events coordinator.
Okay. So are you all?
Yes.
This is true. Yeah.
I was going to say, because are you messing with me, or is it like a requirement to be a recruitment person that you have to be named Alex?
So if you say Alex, at least one of them will answer.
Yeah, you're going to get a response. Yeah. Okay. Well, my name is Misty. I'm the Director of Housing and Residence Life. I have not been here for quite 2 years yet. When I hit September, I'll be right at the 2-year mark. So I'm still learning some things about Marshall, still kind of getting my feet under me. But starting to at least finally feel like I have a pretty good grasp. It takes a little bit. So, if there's anything specific that you guys want to know or need to know about housing, questions that you get or information that I don't hit, tell me. Just be like, hey, what about this? As we go through, like I said, I kind of edited what we do during orientation for the students because it's a good general guide about kind of the highlights of living on campus, and then we can just go from there.
Absolutely.
But I am, like I said, I'm pretty laid back, so if you want at that point in time, just ask as we have stuff. So, starting off, was going to talk a little bit about the HRL staff, the housing staff. We have a ton of different staff that are part of the department. In the picture, that is a lot of our student staff or resident advisors. So, how many of y'all lived on campus? Did y'all go to Marshall, other schools?
Mm-hmm.
I went somewhere else.
So, but you went somewhere else. But about half of y'all have lived on campus. So, the RAs are undergraduate students. They live on the floor. They're here to kind of support students socially, academically. They're going to do some programming. If you have a roommate issue, they're going to help you work through the roommate issue. They're also making sure that students are following policies. And so they're kind of like the go-to. They're the peer on the floor for the students. Then we have, the way our buildings are set up, we run them kind of by areas. We have what we call an area coordinator. They used to be called resident directors here. This past year we changed them from the area coordinator. They are full-time staff members who have an apartment in the halls. They all have a master's degree. It's a master's degree required position. And so they've gone to school to do this. They supervise the student staff that live in the halls. They deal with the conduct cases. They ensure that our programming is intentional and is serving an impact. They're making sure that, if there's a student in crisis, they're helping the student in crisis. So basically kind of that day-to-day management of the building. And they do have, for the most part, each of them have what we call an assistant area coordinator. That is a graduate student, that is a student at Marshall who is working on their master's degree. Paired with them, that will help them run the area or like a specific area. We do, within housing and residence life, we do have our own housekeeping and maintenance staff as well. So if students have issues with something that isn't working properly, if something is broken, our staff will go in, they'll fix it, they'll take care of it, and the housekeeping staff, they clean public areas. So we'll talk a little bit about the residence halls in a second, but they clean community areas. So if you're in a residence hall that has community bathrooms, they clean those. They clean the lobbies, the hallways. If you're in a residence hall that has a suite style bathroom, the bathrooms in kind of your room, they do not clean that. That is the student's responsibility. So that's a little bit about staffing. So first year students, primarily right now, the first year students primarily live in 3 different residence halls. First year North, first year South, and Twin Towers East. We do have a floor in Buskirk, which is an all-female building that also houses freshmen. And then in Commons, we house, that's where some of the freshman athletes live with some of their teams. There are some freshman athletes that do live in first year. That's also where there's a couple of the special programs through honors. I always mispronounce it, Jaeger. I'm like, is it Eager or is it Jaeger? I always say it wrong. I say it differently each time, and no matter what way I say it, I feel like it's not correct. But that's where they live in Willis with the Honors College, and also students in the BS&D program. We hold some rooms in Willis as well for some of those students also. But primarily, your first year students are going to live in the 2 different halls. So a couple of the differences between the halls that's out there with First Year North, First Year South, and Twin Towers East. A lot of people think that, oh, well, first year is where first year lives. They're a little bit more expensive than Twin Towers East, so we do have 2 different options kind of financially for students. A lot of the students are going to most likely look at first year and indicate that they want to live there because that has all double rooms with the bathrooms inside of the rooms. We are working, just so the way you guys understand how it works is, First Year North and South is not owned or operated by the university. They are operated by Capstone Properties. Capstone on campus, Scott Schatzer is their director of operations. And so we have a partnership with them. We work closely with them. A lot of students may not even realize that they aren't part of the institution, but they technically aren't part of the institution. So if a parent calls me with as the director of housing and they have an issue about First Year North or First Year South, I can do some limited things to help them, but I am most likely referring them over to the first year staff because they are the ones that technically run and operate that building. So just that FYI, so you know a little bit of history on that. We try to, as much as possible, make it seamless for the students. Whether they're interested in whichever one they fill out kind of one application that has the agreement for both. When they fill out the application, they pay their bill to the university like any other student does, and then the university kind of settles up financially with Capstone and all of that. So, but we have had a few conversations. This is not approved, not official, but just kind of keep this in mind as you're going out starting to recruit students. A lot of people like to sell First Year North and First Year South. Oh, I live there, it's the great place, you don't want to live somewhere with a community bathroom. We are looking at trying to do some testing of doing a floor, possibly not this academic year, but next academic year of upper class in there, with maybe doing some more upper class in there, because what we're running into, the university did not think things through when we entered in the agreement. We put first year students in First Year North and First Year South, and then they're required to live on their second year, and then they go to a community style building and bathroom, and they view that as a downgrade, and students get really upset about that. And so the thought is you start them in a traditional hall and then move them up to a suite style. And so we're eyeing kind of that conversion over time. And so that's why it's really important that as you guys are out recruiting, and then the student tour guides who also help and do the tours on campus are really kind of helping promote and sell Twin Towers East as well. Because our hope is to start a little bit of that changeover in the next few years. It's not official, it's not been officially approved, but like I said, our goal is for next fall to have kind of a test floor of one floor of upper class in one of First Year North or First Year South, just to see how it goes, and then as long as it's successful, then continue kind of a slow transition, if that makes sense. Seems to be like, that's what a lot of schools do, is they start their students in community style and then work them up. And we've taken the different approach, which creates a lot of students who aren't happy by the time they become upper class students. So just that FYI on that. But First Year North, First Year South, that's where a lot of our freshman learning communities currently are. They have what they call a theater room. They have a couple classrooms in the building. They also, like I said, have the bathrooms in the rooms that the students are responsible for cleaning. The way that the staffing works is they do have their own maintenance and housekeeping staff that they work with that aren't employed by HRO. Twin Towers East is the traditional kind of residence hall. It's a 15-story high-rise with community-style bathrooms. There's 2 bathrooms on each floor with kind of multiple units inside. We've been working on slowly doing some kind of renovations in those bathrooms and updates to like change how, like from putting some doors on them on some of them instead of just shower curtains. And so it's expensive, it's a slow process, but we're working on that in east and west piece by piece as we have time.
Are those floors co-ed or?
In east, they are most likely going to be single gender.
Okay.
In west, where we have upper class, we do have a couple floors that are co-ed.
Okay.
Where we have a couple learning communities,
Mhm.
and we also have a floor that is kind of a gender neutral floor for students that may be more comfortable living.
Gotcha.
On a floor that's a little bit more kind of open.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the two main differences between the buildings. In Twin Towers East, housekeeping does clean kind of the bathrooms and the common areas, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But we did just do some major lobby renovations in Twin Towers East as well. I have some pictures in there, so that way you guys can see. So.
And side note, just because I see it typed on here, there's free laundry in all the facilities now.
Yeah, I am.
That's
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually hitting that
Okay.
in the presentation.
Awesome, okay.
No, you're
I
fine.
do have a question.
Yeah, you see all the notes for orientation I have for those.
Yeah, so I'm like, free laundry.
Yeah,
Great.
but-
Can we get that back?
No. That was the first comment somebody made when we posted it online. So, like, how about my refund? I'm like, nice try.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
I was a resident advisor in the freshman halls. I know
Yes.
because Capstone owned them, they had different programming policies. So I'm just trying to think of like selling points.
We try to keep the programming as similar as we can between the two now. We're trying to run the Res Life as similar as we can for the most part between the two. They, there are little kind of quirks between HRL and first year that where there are a few kind of differences, but we're trying to minimize those as much. But some like programmatic things, like some minor things that you may see, I don't think that first year is picking it up this year, but I gave you all out coffee mugs. One of the things that we started to do, the front desk in the HRL halls, I've started to try to operate those as a cross between safety and security, but also as kind of a concierge sort of thing. So students have questions about, hey, like where can I go and do this? Or, hey, what's on the dining hall menu? Kind of have some of those sort of things going on there. But we've started at the HRL halls, we keep some coffee pots out where they make fresh coffee in them, and so students can just come grab a cup of coffee. They also have like hot chocolate or tea if you would prefer that, like a coffee pot with just water. We started that last year. First year did not have it in their budget to start it. I don't think that they're picking it up this year.
I just know that I think HRL
Yeah.
was required to do like more programs per month
Yeah.
per RA than first year halls.
Yeah.
So I didn't
Yeah,
know.
we're trying.
That was a selling
Yeah,
point
we're
that
trying
I
to
used.
keep that right now a little bit more kind of consistent is what we're trying to do. So, but yeah, so the kids in the HRL halls, we have given them coffee mugs. We're doing it again this year, getting new coffee mugs from, because then that was so popular, honestly, last year in like August, September, that first month, we went through well over 1,000 styrofoam cups. We didn't know when it was hot out it would be that popular. And so we're like, we can't keep doing this. So that's why we invested in those. But programmatically, we are trying right now as much as we can to try to keep them as consistent as possible is the goal. But we'll find here and there little quirks. So, yeah. Housing requirement. There is a 2-year residency requirement at Marshall. If people ask why, the reason why we have a 2-year residency requirement, we actually do have university research that shows that students at Marshall who live on campus tend to have a slightly higher GPA than the students who live off campus and commute. It also, through probably the engagement and some of those sort of things, also impacts retention and graduation rates. I have some plans to work with institutional research to try to get a little bit more kind of concrete data on like the graduation rates and retention rates and some things like that. But but we do run reports, and we do have a few years of information that shows that the students who live on campus do truly have better GPAs. I taught a uni class last year, and what I would say is my kids that were normally there were my ones that lived on campus, and my kids who, weren't coming, weren't showing up, or were showing up late, they were the ones who were like, well, I mean, it's just so hard to find a parking place, or, whatever excuse here. And so it really, really does kind of show that. And so one of the main ways that I try to explain this to parents is, this isn't housing saying, hey, you have to live on campus. This is actually a Board of Governors, a Board of Trustees policy, where they believe so strongly in the impact that living on campus has, that they have, that they are supporting this policy, which is why we have this for 2 years. We do fight really hard with the upper class students because they don't want downgraded into like a community style hall. They will try anything and everything to get out of their housing requirement. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of looking at how do we make some of these changes and things like that in the future. But we simply explained that it is a two-year residency requirement. We really just need to be upfront with that and kind of get that out to people. The number of times that people come to me and say, well, my tour guide told me that, oh, don't worry about that, they'll let you out of housing for that, or people always get off campus, it's easy to do, just do it. Please, 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 please don't do that, because, we're holding that kind of line, the president's office is holding that line, and then we have people kind of come back saying, well, so-and-so said this, and 90% of the time, I don't believe that so-and-so really said that. I think they're grasping at straws trying to get their way. So a couple other, and we'll go through some other selling points for living on campus, but one of the things that they're always going to say is it's so expensive to live on campus. So they're not really comparing apples to apples. They're more looking at like apples to oranges when they give you the numbers. I talked to a mom yesterday who was trying to, she's already called the president's office, but she didn't like my answer. But she wanted her son to live off campus because she was like, for housing and meal plan, it's going to cost him $11,000 for the year to live on campus. I can have him live off campus for $5,000 a year. And I'm like, let's talk about this for a minute. Number one, that's probably just housing. It's probably some shady housing, and maybe not some of your safer areas, or probably something that may burn down in your sleep. Not that we want that to happen, however, I've seen some of the off-campus housing in the area. It scares me. So, but the other thing is you can't tell me that $5,000 a year will also cover meals. You're not figuring meals in for any of that.
Utilities.
My thing is, where are they just getting a lease for $5,000 a year?
Right?
What?
Girl, so help me out.
Show me that lease.
Really, because I'm like, yeah, work with me on that. But so anyway. So they're going to come and they're going to throw all of these things at you, and they're going to be like, well, it's so expensive. Okay, well, you're really not comparing things equitably. That's hard to say today. Number one. But, number two, you need to look at a couple of the other benefits. You don't have to worry about kind of where you're parking. We'll talk in a little bit about safety and security. Safety is huge in the residence halls. There's just so many things, like if your rent is covering utilities, we don't have utility caps and some things like that. So we can go ahead and hit the next slide. So the housing agreement, if people are asking about their housing agreement, you may not get a lot of questions about this because you're hitting people really early on the front end. But if they do, what happens is when they pay their university deposit, it will take a couple days. We typically say give it 24 to 48 hours to kind of process in the computer. Then they can go to the housing website under future students, and they can click, sign up for housing. and they can sign in there. Their login is their Marshall University username and password that they would have for their email and everything. And so that's after they've been admitted, and pay their enrollment deposit. That's when they can go in and do that. This is an important step. We need to make sure that students know you need to do this, because what happens is if they don't, they do get a hold put on their account. And then later they're all upset because, well, why is there a hold on my account? Well, you haven't done what you're supposed to do. And so that's a little bit of that, but I don't know how much of that you all get because you hit them a lot earlier in the process, I think.
I get a lot of questions, I think, still about like where do I go for housing, like where, like the website. I think that's most of the time I usually just email on the website and just get right to it.
Okay. One of the other things for housing I love, like I've done some of like the high school fairs that we've had. I've gone to those, and students are like, I absolutely want to live on campus. How much does it cost to live in the village? And I'm like, that's not on campus.
Yeah.
They all
You can live there when you're a junior. That's kind of the housing agreement. So if you want to go to the next. So this is just some pictures from some of the different events and things like that we've done on campus. Just if students are asking about campus life, these are events that housing has sponsored over time. We do the yearly talent show, Thunder on the Stage. They've done like paint parties in the past, kind of like the collar run, only they were throwing paint at each other. Pumpkin carving, always, the inflatables on campus through like the spring picnic carnival that they do. And so there's always different things that are happening. You guys have been around enough on campus, you probably know, a lot of the different events that happen. But housing does do some major programs on top of some of the smaller programs that we do on floors and just within buildings as well. So academic support, we support the students academically in the halls also. So it's not just that they're living there, we have some intentional programs in place to help the students succeed. We've talked a little bit about the higher GPAs. We have a staff of academic mentors. They are undergraduate students that work for us who have done well academically. They may have some content areas where they feel particularly strong. And so they may be able to kind of help some students with some maybe base level tutoring on the subject. If not, they know the resources on campus and can get students connected to those resources. But they're also going to do programs for the students that live in the halls on like time management, how to register for classes and some of those sort of things to really kind of help the students succeed academically is one of the goals that we have. They are based in what are our learning centers. We have a learning center in Twin Towers East and Twin Towers West. The mentors will do office hours out of those. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. But they will do office hours out of those where they can, students can pop down and see them if they have questions or if they need anything or looking for help or direction or resources. And also sometimes students just like to go down to the learning centers because it's a place where they can be around other people, but it's still a quiet place where they can study without having to leave the building too. And so those are some of the resources available for them there and some of the programming that we do. We do have 3 faculty in residence that live on campus. These are faculty members who have given up their nice house off campus or apartment or whatever, and they live in a residence hall apartment. They sign up for a commitment of 2 to 3 years. And what they do is, in exchange for the housing, they will do some office hours to be available for students, just general kind of meeting and connecting with students, and they'll also do some programming. It could be academic-based, or it could be like a social special interest-based program. But the whole goal of it is to really kind of demystify the whole, like, professor at college is so scary, and just really give some students a chance to interact with some of the faculty. The faculty that we have this year, they are all faculty that are super highly engaged across campus. A lot of the go-getters, Dr. Larison from English, I believe, Kristen, I always mess up her last name,
Lilibus.
I was going to say Lavars, but it's Lilibus. Also from English.
Yeah.
And then Zelly Rivas from, I think she teaches modern language Japanese, and they've all been just kind of phenomenal with the students. Safety and security, this is one of the things that we try to really hit as a selling point for the students. We have the 24-hour desk. Like I said, those are a combination of safety and security and kind of some concierge sort of things. What I tell students, our buildings are locked 24 hours a day. When they come up to the building, they swipe their ID card, and their ID card will get them into the building. And then what you have is you have a sticker on your ID card that says kind of what building that you belong in, and you show it at the desk. They know that you belong there. You go on upstairs. Part of the security thing, you hear students sometimes complain about it, but you have to sign in your guest, so that way it's a way that we can make sure that we know who is in the building is supposed to be in the building. And you know, the students are like, oh, it's so much hassle or whatever, but each year we do a survey for the students about just kind of their satisfaction with housing. You know, what sort of things can we be better? Each year, the two highest things, number one is always our student staff that the students are really pleased with. Number two is how safe they feel in the residence halls. And so they may think that's a little bit of a pain, but secretly I think they kind of, they may not even realize it, but I think that they appreciate it because they know if you're in the halls, you're supposed to be there. It's not like you're just some random person who came in off of Fifth Avenue and is just checking it out.
Which would probably happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, you know, that's why we do some of those things. We have staff that are on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You know, we do house students over some breaks. Between winter and like fall and spring semester, there is an additional charge for students to stay on campus because that's not part of the housing contract. We do allow people to stay between fall and spring. Not between fall and spring, but for fall break and spring break. We do allow students to stay on campus for those 2 breaks for free, if they need to. But we always have someone on call. We have RAs who are on duty whenever the halls are occupied. We also have a professional staff member on call, one of the area coordinators or graduate level. They are always on call. We have a secondary on call, which is our assistant director level staff. And then I virtually live my life on call in case there's ever anything needed. But we also always have on-call maintenance and housekeeping rotations as well in case there is some sort of maintenance emergency or housekeeping emergency. That is something that cannot wait until the next morning.
I have 2 questions. First one is, I know that it used to be that first year didn't close, so they didn't have to pay additional over the holiday break. That's still
for this year, that is accurate.
Okay.
For next academic year, fall of 19, that may change. That is potentially on the table as something to try to keep things consistent between the two.
And the second one with security. This is probably aging me a lot, but I remember when like opposite sex guests had to be out by a certain time.
We've actually, if you go online, we have our guide to housing. One of the things that we've gotten a lot of complaints about is our visitation policy. Because you have to sign like every single person in. You can't have guests of the opposite gender stay the night. The way that it works is, and we reworded it, and so I may misrepresent, but it is specifically if you go online to the guide. It's on our website under resources. The updated policies in there, but we've loosened it up some. So if you live on campus, you aren't kind of restricted to how much you can visit in another building. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But if you live off campus, you still fall within kind of those bounds, or if you're a non-student. But the way that it works is it was very confusing, the policy, how they did it before is, well, it can't be more than this many hours within this many period, or you are banned until this time. And so I'm coaching the staff. We're doing some language changing. We're being careful with words like ban. We ban you if you do something really bad. If you just exceeded your allotted visitation
Didn't Alexis
time,
King get
it
banned?
is a hold. So sometimes you would be amazing what just kind of changing your language can do.
Because she
So,
kept
so
staying.
we're working on that this year. So you'll hear some language changes. But because of the starting and the ending point of the periods were so confusing because of what worked before as well from the first time you're checked in within, then that kind of starts your time window. But now we're doing it by the week.
Okay.
So, and so hopefully that's a little bit more kind of clear and structured. And then we've also loosened up a little bit for students who actually do live on campus.
Is it still 3 nights a week for people that don't live on campus?
Yes, I think we did it 3 nights.
Okay.
Is what we left it at.
It used to be midnight.
So
When I lived on
like that.
campus,
Yeah.
all opposite sex.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and
by midnight.
one of the other things that they would also do is the way. So after you spent like your 72 hours,
Canoodling.
then you had to wait X many hours. Like if you hit 72 hours within a certain time period, then you had a ban put on you for X amount of time before you could come back. And so we don't have that holding period between the two.
It's just like just
So it's
It's
just
only
within the
opposite
week. So
sex.
what could happen is
If
if
you're gay, you gotta marry.
you use your X many days at the end of the week, and then your next X
No
many days at the
limits.
beginning of next week.
Or if they live in the same building.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then when you get to the end of the second week, you will have a hold put on you until visitation resets, and not banned is kind of the way it works. So similar to what we had before, but loosened up a little bit, and we're
Back in my
trying to
day.
be a little bit more friendly with our language because I don't think we were very friendly in our previous language. So, so we are working on kind of new and improving ourselves a little bit. So
Freshman students ask about friends or visitors that they have.
yeah.
I have a boyfriend.
And they
Yeah.
ask you like whenever the parents aren't around, or like they walk up ahead and they're like,
Yeah.
"Get my boyfriend."
And you still
My
get from
boyfriend's
parents at
27.
orientation. Well, they can't have people over, can they?
That's what my that was my dad, and I'm like, shush.
So, but
They are now.
if you go to our website, it is if you go resources, it has like the guide to housing, and the full policy is listed there. But we have kind of tried to make it a little bit clearer, but also loosen it up a little bit to try to respect the fact that we are dealing with 18-year-olds, but also try to make sure that we just aren't having people randomly moving in. So,
One last question.
Yes.
Sorry. I deal with students that often have children.
Mhm.
Oh, that was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
What's the policy with that?
unfortunately, we do not have family housing. We do not have access to family housing on campus.
Are they just like released from their housing?
What
requirement?
what they will do is as part of the housing policy, it's listed online. There are some very specific things that you can be released from housing. If you live within 50 miles of campus, you can be released, but you have to live at home at your permanent address with your parents. The amount of students who think, oh, I'm going to commute, and then they are just, well, I'm just really going to get an apartment. No, you can't do that. If we find out that you did that, your housing release is revoked. You're required to have on-campus housing at that point in time. Doesn't matter if you're in a lease, you get to pay for both now. And you will also go through the conduct system for violating the university policy and lying.
Oh.
So, so just we try to be very specific in our language and how we share that. We don't want it to seem cold and unfriendly, but we also want to make sure, like, you knew.
Right.
Don't be playing this game. At home with your parent at your permanent address. If your permanent address has changed since you've applied from the institution, like you applied from the institution and your address was like in Columbus, and now like all of a sudden you have something over on 6th Avenue in Huntington, I'm not buying it.
What about, because I recruit primarily out of state, and I'll have students that have family in the Huntington area, and they're like, can they move in with so-and-so?
Not unless they're their parent or their legal guardian.
Okay.
So, So no, they cannot. We get all the time like, well, I mean, my aunt lives there, my grandma lives there, or
Mhm.
my older sister goes to school there. Why can't I just rent an apartment with her?
Mhm.
No, it's at home with your parents.
Sorry to probably getting nitpicky. So we'll have students that, come from certain areas and like their parents may be split and they may have a parent here.
Mhm.
Is it whoever claims them on like taxes or
Their
whichever permanent
address,
address?
their permanent address. For default, we're going to look into the system and see kind of where they lived when they applied.
Like
Is,
high school
is
and
what
all
we're
that.
going to do.
Okay.
Like if you lived with your mom and you were in Columbus and you graduated from a high school in Columbus, but my dad lives here, then there may be some specific information that we may need to see from you. Because like we need matching driver's license and things like that.
Which is like special case.
And then why is it different than your application and some of those sort of things? So
So like, if people have children, like, is that
Yes.
one reason?
yes,
Like, they
children
should be exempt
children
from
is one
taxes?
reason.
Okay.
So yeah, so we got distracted. But
Yeah.
yes,
I just wanted to make sure.
So the 50 miles, if you are over a certain age, I think it's 22, you're not required to live on campus. If you have more than 60 credit hours, so technically junior status. If you are married, because we do not have married housing, you have to give us a copy of your marriage certificate. Or if you do have a dependent, and then at that point in time, you would need to produce a birth certificate or guardianship papers to show that they are a minor dependent.
Not just a pet, but a human.
Yeah.
If that's level.
Thank you.
So did you say pets?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, and not a pet, a human.
And they're just going to give us a letter and call it an ESA, and then we'll have to by law accommodate anyway. So I've given up on that.
I need my pet
This is my
chicken.
my
I've
small
heard
hedgehog.
there's like more animals in the rescue
Yeah.
calls
Yeah,
now, and they're
yeah.
like legit.
Not very
advertising.
many,
So
but-
it's just like going to get them certified as like a service animal or like whatnot.
It's
Support dog or
it's a nationwide issue at colleges and universities across. There are a handful of people who truly need them, and it is a legitimate accommodation. And then you have quite a few people who they just want a pet, and they have a doctor that will write a note, and because of federal HUD
Girl, if you try to
regulations, it makes
sneak a
it
cat
very
in her
hard
book
for
bag.
us to combat.
Like,
Poor
why is
cat.
your bag meowing?
But
Poor
there's a
cat.
process, there's a policy if you get questions about that through disability services, where they will have to submit appropriate documentation, fill out the appropriate paperwork. Disability services will review it to determine is it acceptable or is it not at that point in time. So I had someone last year who was like, "Why do I need to live on campus? Because I need an emotional support animal." I'm like, "Join the club. We've got plenty. Come on in." So, but we do have quite a few, primarily dogs and cats. Safety. You see kind of the other items for safety. I think that they're kind of givens that we're across the street from the police department. All of our buildings have fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems, which makes them extremely safe compared to some of the frightening off-campus housing that we have seen in the area as well. Free laundry. This was everybody's favorite thing this summer. So we moved to free laundry. First year is doing it as well. So everybody is doing it. So for students that live in the hall, please keep your room clean, do your laundry. We are doing some education for the students. We just installed them. We had one washer within 48 hours of it being installed. One of the students decided, I think, to wash everything he owned in one load, and he burned up the motor in it. That was $300 worth of damage to a machine that
Hopefully,
was 48 hours old.
Try to spend.
So we're trying to do some education with students on that, but that is a huge selling point. When we posted it on our social media, I think if you run a page, you see how many hits that social media Marshall gets. Probably not always tons, like a few here, a few there. I think for the housing page in the spring, when we were hiring RAs, that had our most hits, and it was maybe like 1,300, like 1,300. This has, like, within 3 days, 45,000 people that it hit. So
jealous.
that way, so it was huge. So that is something that we have added this year. I did book before we did it. As one of my rationale. WVU did not do it. So throw that out there. One of the other things, I know that some other schools in the area, I think Ohio University got some flack from some of their students about, hey, Marshall is doing this. But what's up? When's are you going to do this for us? So
That matters. That adds up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to think, I probably spend.
That's a fat.
$10
That's a fat Patty's burger and cheese fries.
Yeah. So do they still? I mean, like this is just for my own knowledge. Like, do they just need to go in, or do they still have to use their card where they like swipe it and just go in and
you just go in and use it. We did not hook it up to cards, so
Okay.
any of that. So you go in and you use it. So, all right, next up is Twin Towers East Lobby renovation.
Oh.
Amazing.
You see what West currently looks like. So this was from last week as they're finishing up the work. So you
That
still
looks-
see some people working.
Yes.
Wow.
So if you guys want to take a tour of it at some point in time, let me know. I'm more than happy to carve out time. I can walk you through.
Did you
whenever
design
have
it
time.
yourself?
We worked with an architect.
I was gonna say it looks so good.
We worked with an architect to do it.
Maybe we
But
can
the
pop in tomorrow on our way to the rec center.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so if you guys are available, if you have time, I'll check my schedule. If not, if you flip through, there's some more pictures so you can see.
Hey,
Now those aren't on the student floors. Those are the public restrooms on the first floor.
It's like,
That is a major upgrade, guys.
So-
Have y'all seen
Yeah.
those?
Oh,
things?
yeah.
I have
that looks like a jewelry store or something fancy.
Love the green light.
It's like
so
a
I will
bank.
pass this around.
Yeah.
It has some of the before and after shots. I
It
took a
needed
meeting
it,
I was
that's
in
for
earlier
sure.
today. So we're still doing some many kind of punch list items and things like that, but you can kind of see we're trying to make it so things present a little bit better. Obviously, we only have so much time, and we really only have so much money.
No, it
But
looks
one of
amazing.
the things I'm going to beg, plead, and ask is, as you guys are here on campus touring, as you're like showing pictures to students on the road, as the student tour guides are on campus touring, please, please, please take them to East. I've had so many people who give tours tell me, oh, well, we don't take them to East unless they ask. We just show them first year.
We need
Please
to now.
don't do that.
Yeah, for
Please
sure.
show them both.
Is there a room in
There-
East,
there
like
is a
showroom?
Since I came here, we've had a permanent showroom in East that's on the 9th floor. I had talked to Beth and Sabrina about it a while ago to ask, if we wanted to move it lower, keep it on 9. They opted to keep it on 9 because if we moved it lower, it was in the out floor, and sometimes they're not as pretty or fragrant.
Sorry, guys. Y'all.
I mean, no offense, but freshman guys aren't always the best. So they opted to keep it on 9. It's 9:10. There's a key available at the desk. I don't have pictures of that floor, and it's part of the presentation, but we've put new carpet on the floor. We've painted the hallway a brighter white because there are no exterior windows on that floor. We've got comments that it looks so dark. You would be amazed at what a brighter white paint will do. So if you guys have time tomorrow, when you come look at the lobby, I will take you up to show you 9 and the
Can I move
showroom.
Yeah.
If you can carve out time, let me know. As long as I'm free. If I'm not, I will have someone else show you. The lobby right now, this is the temporary carpet. We're getting the permanent carpet in. It's going to be a little bit darker. It just wasn't ready, and I'm like, well, I have to have carpet in there for opening. So that's
I
all
need
there's to
something.
it.
Right, gotta have something.
And the furniture is not in there at this point in time. We're getting all brand new furniture. It will be delivered on Saturday for the lobby. One of the other changes that we made last year in East, if you remember how we had the old captain's beds in there, those big clunky beds you couldn't do anything with, those are all in a landfill somewhere. We got rid of them last year. We now have like just the regular bed frames in there and dressers in there. So those are all somewhere in the landfill. They are no more.
I saw all the dumpsters sitting out this summer, so
Yeah, and a lot from the renovations. Those are our social media sites. that we have out there. We do have a Snapchat. It's not on there because I can't remember the name. My staff member who runs it is very hit or miss about when we use it. So those are kind of the primary things. Do you guys have specific questions about living on campus, housing, any of the buildings, any of the projects that we've been working on or the changes?
This
I'm
may
just super jealous.
This may be a dumb question. I know like our swipe access that we have to go into Freshman South Freshman South has the showroom. I know that we have swipe access for that, but does that also work for towers? Or is there going to need to be granted?
When, if you want to send me, somebody wants to send me an updated list, I will send that to the ID office to make sure that you have it.
Okay.
I was given a list
Write that on the
last
bottom
year.
of that page.
And so if there's been staffing changes and things like that, then you might not have access.
Okay.
And so as long as you notify us when people join their staff and leave staff, we'll make sure that you have
Okay.
that
I
access.
knew that we had like it was a completely separate card that we had at our office, but whichever is easiest
Yeah.
for you. I just didn't know if we had both access.
So the separate cards that you had in the office, it should have gone to both because
Okay.
we had made for the tour guides.
Yeah.
We had made cards for the tour guides.
Okay.
But then I heard that about half of the cards have come up missing and nobody knew where they were.
Nice. Cute. Love it.
Because we made them like right after I got here.
Okay.
We made I
Oh,
think
and that-
I
seven
think this
cards.
And that's
past
been a
semester
hot
we
minute.
just got the 901
Yeah.
and they had just had access with their student ID.
Yeah, and so what happened was my first year here, I came in like fall of 16. We had made those cards kind of gave for the office to check out the tour guides. And so what happened last summer, what I got was, oh well, we don't know where like the majority of those cards are. They've disappeared.
That's safe.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Love it.
thanks for letting me know.
Deactivate.
And so I was given a list of 901s, and then Scott approved first year. I approved for HRL to kind of give access. And then what happens is for any of like the student staff, because we've granted them access, we just ask that you guys explain to the student tour guides that they have access as part of their job. If they're found using it for like personal, then their access would be revoked.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Like I said, most of the students I recruit are out of state, and sometimes when they're worried about the cost of housing, I let them know like in the future you could become an RA, and don't they get tuition or housing assistance that way?
Yeah.
When can they apply for that?
So the way that RA applications work is we have typically in the fall of your freshman year. So if you're a freshman, in the fall of your freshman year, we'll probably sometime about November, maybe December, start putting some information out.
So they
about
can that early.
It's time to apply.
Okay.
And then what will happen is those application deadlines are typically in January, and then you'll interview in February, and then you'll find out in typically March if you have one for the following year.
Okay.
Is the way it works. So we try to do it as early as we can.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that we have, we've worked with financial aid to create a very small scholarship program for students. This year, I think we set aside funds where we could offer it for approximately 8 students. I need to see how many they've given it to this year, but it's based off of financial need. Financial aid is the one who makes the sole decision on it. Housing stays out of it. But for students with financial need, we will make a 2-year commitment to a student to help with housing. So the only thing is you can't live in first year. You have to live in one of the HRL halls because HRL is supplying the money. First year has opted not to participate in it. But it is, so you take the rate for a standard Towers double room, and so take half of that rate. And so the scholarship is for half of a Towers double rate. So if it's, say, like $3,000 to live in a Towers double, then it's $1,500 a semester that you get to help with your housing cost. And so this year we offered it up for approximately 8 students for financial aid to give that to. Because we do have a 2-year residency requirement, it is a 2-year commitment. And so wherever they decide to live the following year, it needs to be, during their sophomore year, we will still give that to them, but they will have to live in one of the HRL halls. They can't move off campus. You know, if we do upperclassmen first year, they can't move over there. They have to stay in one of the HRL halls. And even if they go to a higher rate housing, it's still half of the tower's double rate. And so that's one of the other things that we have started as kind of an incentive as well to try to help students out a little bit also.
If they want to apply, do I just send them to HRL or do I send them to financial aid?
For that, pretty much financial aid is, they are the ones that are using it kind of at their discretion. I don't know if it is an actual application process that they have for it, or if it's just as they're working with people, they recognize this is the only way that we're going to be able to get someone here, because there's no financial way that they can make it happen otherwise. And so I think it could be a little bit at their discretion with it. And so, you know, I think you could say that, you know, there are different options out there. You know, you might want to talk to financial aid, and they base it completely on financial circumstances. And this is the first year that we've done it, the first year that we've tried it. So it's going to be, you know, kind of an evaluation year to see how it worked this year. So this will be the first group coming in with it. But
awesome.
I do know of at least 2 students that they've offered it to where, you know, I've been CC'd, and so I'm waiting to get the full list where they said this, you know, without this they would not have been able to come.
Awesome.
So
Are freshman year students allowed to have a car?
yes,
Okay.
yes, they can. They're allowed to have a car. They apply for the parking like everyone else. So they can. I didn't really hit anything with dining. I don't know if you're meeting with dining, if you have questions about dining, or if you need information.
Dining's
Is
pretty
it still
cut
that
and dry.
freshmen are required to have the unlimited